Good evening and welcome to the July 12th Lebanon Redevelopment Commission meeting. We will begin this evening, as we do with every evening, with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All righty, and Madam Clerk, if you could please reflect, we have 100% attendance this evening on this beautiful July evening. Fairly quick, hopefully. First off here, we do have some minutes to go through. So I believe, do we have the special minutes?
It's from May the 12th.
Okay, so this would be the May 12th meeting minutes. All members, I believe, received those electronically. And with that, I would entertain a motion on those minutes.
So moved.
I've got a motion and a second to approve those minutes. All those in favor?
Aye.
Who seconded it?
It was Dick.
Okay, thank you.
All righty, so that motion carries. Next up on old business, I do not show any old business before the commission, so we will move right along to new business. And I believe we have some updates coming, and Mr. Ben Bontrager will start us off.
Sounds like we were challenged to make this quick and efficient, so we'll do just that. So I'll just do a quick introduction. You're going to get some updates from Redevelopment this evening. They'll show you an updated renderings and site plans of the potential shell building project, and they'll walk through some of the financial details. And there is one item that they'll need your direction on tonight, and they'll get into that here in a little bit. But with that, I'll just turn it over to Chris from Redevelopment, and he'll walk through some of the updates for you.
Well, good evening. Chris Kane with Redevelopment Construction, and we're here tonight just to provide some general details, and I think next month is when we'll come for actual approval for the project. But just wanted to give you some updates as far as the status of our progress at this point. So this site plan that you see should look pretty familiar. We've made some slight modifications based on some requests from the owners to make it fit more with what their vision was for the retail outlots out front. But we still have, I think, a great building product here with a 50,000 square foot building that is expandable to just a little over 80,000 square feet on the property as they're showing it now. We also have the opportunity to do a second project, which you can see kind of on this side. We're showing another 50,000 square foot building there. But our initial shell would be in this location here with the paving that you see there, bringing a new road into the site as well. Also showing the potential elevations for the building, and we've had a lot of discussion around materials and what would be used on the building. And so, in working through some of the challenges we have with availability of precast and time for production, we are looking at an insulated metal panel option. And so this is a really clean, modern look. If you saw the renderings previously using precast, it's very similar. We're basically changing out and using metal in that case. This is not your standard ribbed metal that you would see on, a pole barn or something like that. This is a high-end product. In a lot of cases, it can be more expensive than precast. So what we're looking to do is provide a nice feature entry to the building. One of the great things about using metal is there's a lot more flexibility to it too. So as we've talked through with Ben and his team, we're looking at other options that if you had someone that wanted to subdivide the building, it would be very easy to potentially add another entrance on the opposite side of the building. It just gives it a lot more flexibility. And in talking with him too, we are going to wrap the sides of the building to match the metal that's on the front, so you'll have a very cohesive look between the sides and in the front. On the north side of the building, we will do lesser expensive insulated metal panels. It'll still be a nicer option than what your traditional metal would be. But that just makes things easier as we expand it north. It's not just investing a lot into those higher cost panels for that. So I would be happy to answer any questions about kind of our design at this point. Is there any questions from the commission that I can answer?
Is there any way you can bring samples the next time?
Yes,
Of
we
that
certainly
metal?
can. Yep.
Both the good side and the bad side, or whatever you call it?
Yeah, yep, we can do that, for sure.
Yeah,
Do you have do you have a handout packet that you could share, or just going off of the large?
We'll bring that at the next meeting, so we will have all of that to you in advance to review prior to that meeting.
I believe the biggest portion of this is a couple of things. So number one, from a metal standpoint, we're running into substantial delays on precast. So for the commission and for those folks at home, right now to get precast, it's upwards of 12 months plus just to get some precast available. Then you still have the construction time. So by looking at alternative materials, we're able to potentially bring this project closer to, a start date. And second of all, I think from a cost standpoint, with the lead time and everything else built in, I don't think we're that much different now with the metal option versus the precast. So it is a little more newer design, newer look to it than what we've seen in the past, which is nice.
Do we anticipate an increase with steel?
We're seeing fairly consistent increases as we've gone along with the project. I think part of our goal is to get to a point where we can lock in pricing, and that's where we'll be in that position next month, to lock in that pricing and to lock in delivery dates on materials. And so at the next month's meeting, once we get closer to, to that point, we'll bring you a schedule and say, based on, what current deliveries are, here's when we can expect to complete the project, and we'll be able to lock in pricing.
You made reference to, and I just asked quickly, could you maybe explain a little more the difference in the front? You said the back of the building would have a little bit of a difference to it, or what?
Yeah. So
could you clarify that?
Yeah. So the front panels that you see here is a smooth panel, and when you get with a smooth panel, is a more expensive finish on that. So on the back, you will have maybe a textured panel. It's just a lower cost panel, and it's just quite honestly because their goal is to expand on that side of the building. It just doesn't necessarily make sense if we're going to go ahead and treat that as an expansion wall, that we would invest a lot of dollars in that. And you'll see that consistently on a lot of spec buildings that you see. If it's a precast building, they'll do a metal wall, and a lot of times they do just the very low cost metal, like you would, ribbed metal. This would be an upgrade from that, but it's just, trying to be economical with the project.
Project that the flexibility for interior design will be about the same?
Absolutely, yeah. It'll have no impact on interior design. The nice part about these panels too is that unlike the traditional rib metal that you see, a lot of times those will have like a vinyl faced insulation on the inside. These are actually sandwich panels, so there's metal on both sides with insulation in between. So it's a nice, clean, white finished look on the inside, and it's just very easy to, you'll see it a lot in actually food grade type plants because it's very easy to clean, wash off, highly reflective. It's good stuff. Doesn't require paint like precast would, and you get a really nice finish.
And as you were talking about some, expansions and those sorts of things that we could look at different areas of the building, do I recall that you almost likened it to like a Lego type of a assembly where a panel could literally be pulled off, adjusted to, a new entrance or that sort of thing, right?
Yeah. So it's a lot of flexibility in being able to remove panels, but also to cut panels. So if we want to add additional dock doors or things like that, it's much easier than dealing with precast. With precast, you have a 12-foot panel that has pre-tension steel in it. You have to cut everything, and you have to provide support on both sides of the panel to hold the rest of the weight. With these types of panels, you can go across, multiple panels, and it's just much easier to work with. But it's a, you know, it's a different type of look. I would consider it a much more modern, cleaner type look than what you might even have with precast.
Very cool. Any other questions from the commission? All right, with that being said, I believe there's a question around some financial piece of it. Is that going to be on Ben's plate? Ben says not it. Ben says not it.
Good evening. My name is Greg Martz with GM Development, and I was partnered with Redevelopment on our BOT response. I do have a short presentation for you, and actually I'll make it very short because I just got a notification my battery's about ready to die here, so.
Yes.
We did have, so I'll start with the part I know I won't remember, and then I'll go to the other part. But we did have 5 banks respond. The one thing I do want to tell you is that all of these are non-binding term sheets at this point, because what we were looking for was direction from you. We'd also like to talk with your financial advisor, of course, with a final decision before we move forward with the credit approval. When we see you next month, we'll have a full credit approval at that time. So I think at that time, we'll have everything that you need to do a more formal vote. But I did want to tell you what their non-binding terms were at this point, and then hopefully you can give us some direction, or we can just work with your financial advisor, however you'd like to do that. The banks that responded were Citizens State Bank responded. I'll give you more details about each of these, but I'm going to start with the interest rate so you can write those down. Citizens responded with a 3.95% interest rate. State Bank of Liston was, they can't quote an exact rate until they go through full underwriting, but they said it would be on the low end 3.25, on the high end 4.00. First Farmers was at 3.30. Horizon was at 3.20, and Tri-County Bank was at 3.00. The bank fees in that same order, Citizens had a $21,000 fee. State Bank of Liston had a $21,000 fee. First Farmers had $20,000. Horizon had $6,300, and Tri-County had $10,500. Is there any part of that you'd like me to say again? So I'll get into some more details now.
I was going to say that's just kind of high level stuff, right? And we'll do additional detail. Okay.
Yep. And so what we'd asked every bank, in order to respond, we had asked them a few things that we wanted them to agree to, again, subject to final credit approval, but just to say we're comfortable with this structure. And so the structure we had asked them, one was no prepayment penalty, because obviously with this kind of project, the entire goal is that hopefully it gets sold maybe even before your first payment is due, that sort of a thing. All of them have agreed no prepayment penalty, and they understood why we were asking for that. Another one, this, you may or may not require this, but it's just a nice little bonus if we can get it, and all of them said they would do it, is a draw period. And so what that, a lot of times what you'll see with these projects is they'll start charging interest on the full amount. They'll completely draw the loan up front, and then you're paying interest from day one. But then you have 12 months of construction, so you're not really using all the funds until 12 months later. All of them have agreed to only charge on the interest that we're using, and so we would have the opportunity to only pay interest on as we're drawing, which would greatly reduce the.
What's the draw period?
12 months is what we asked for, which should cover us for the entire construction period, and probably even a little bit more than that. The other thing we had asked for is a 3-year interest-only period. That can sometimes be hard to get, but they have all said that they believe they can get that when we go through full underwriting. On some projects, that's not very important. On this one, the reason we usually ask for it on our shell building projects is because, again, the idea here is that hopefully within a 3-year period you'll have sold the building, and Chris and I are very confident in this case just because of your location. And so what that means is that we should never even get into the principal and interest portion of this financing. That's the idea. If we do, though, these rates are all fixed for 5 years. So if we do get into if for some reason this building were not sold after 3 years, there's 2 years where the rate is still fixed in that principal and interest period. And then what would happen, the rate would just reset using the same equation that they use to set the rates today. So again, likely we'll never even have to deal with that, but it's nice that it's built in, that there's an automatic way that this can be extended if needed. And then the final is just sometimes a complicating factor can be a request for a debt service reserve, where they'll ask for you to deposit money with a bank and so forth. And we ask that no banks ask for a deposit, and none of them did. So the bottom line is this is all apples to apples. All these rates are as of close of interest today. So we put together this spreadsheet as soon as the market closed today. And so everything you are seeing from an interest rate perspective and a fee perspective, all 5 banks are apples to apples. Everything's the same.
So in terms of a request this evening, are we looking for a specific bank to select to move forward with?
Here's how I would look at it. If I were sitting in your shoes, I would say we probably don't want every bank to go through full credit approval, just because we'd probably be wasting some of their time. If you feel comfortable that there's a big enough gap between the first and second place, we can just ask for a full credit approval from that bank. Or another option would be you all can just defer that decision, and we can talk with your financial advisor and go with what they say. So we're comfortable with whatever you would like. At some point, we'd like to talk to your financial advisor anyway, but at the same point, we're perfectly fine if you have clear direction in your mind that you just like to go with the low interest rate. That's perfectly fine with us.
Thoughts from the commission? Right. So the question at the table, and just real quick, so I'm on the record, so I am employed by Huntington National Bank. I do not receive any compensation from this type of decision, but it is helpful on occasion. So the question was why we would see such a variation. And there's a couple of different things. From a fee structure standpoint, likely what you're doing is you're offsetting some of those unknowns. So the no prepay, the 12-month draw, and the 3-year interest only. Essentially, the banks with the higher upfront costs are offsetting that, and they're collecting the fee on the front side is what they're doing. Versus some of your smaller banks will take a smaller fee, just understanding that they're at the table still. So,
I think you said that perfectly.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right, so talk to me about timeline. So if we were to place this on the back burner until the August meeting, what would that do to our timeline? Would that hinder us in any pieces?
I think what I would probably do is go ahead and get a credit approval from a couple if you wanted to defer that decision, just so that when I'm standing in front of you next month, I can say with 100% certainty that if you vote yes, we can move forward. So I would probably, in that case, just try and keep as much flexibility as possible so that when we're presenting in August, so maybe I'd have 2 or 3 of these banks do a full credit approval if we do that.
So from the risk in I wouldn't say the risk in, but the downside of taking all 5 is we're using up resources from 5 banks, right? And then just so I'm clear, from a credit perspective, it's governmental credit, so it's not like we're hurting a quote-unquote credit score. But those are potentially 3 banks that we're going to tell no, and they've put some resources behind. So the risk would be future relationship, in my opinion, right?
Yeah, and that really, I think that's exactly it. There's no downside for you, to be totally clear, there's no downside for you to just get a full credit approval from all 5. It's just that we probably are wasting, I mean, we obviously would be wasting time of 4 of them in the end.
Right.
But,
I would tell you from a banker, if I worked really hard on a deal like this and then I wasn't really in the running, I'd be upset too. So, professional opinion there. My personal opinion, just kind of understanding the markets, understanding where we're at, understanding this structure, my personal opinion would be that the 3 banks with the 20,000 plus on the front side would be our least competitive bids, regardless of rate, because I look at lowest physical cost, right? So if we hold this building for 1 month, we've put anywhere from $6,300 to $21,000 down. So my personal opinion would be to narrow possibly to the 2 with the lower upfront fees. And then just, did everyone capture those?
County.
So Horizon, if I recall, I have 3.2 at 6,300, and then Tri-County at 3.00 for 10,500. Those would be the 2 that are sub 20,000 for an outlay on the front side.
What were those again, Corey?
So Horizon was 3.2 and a 6,300 fee, and Tri-County was 3.0 with a 10,500 fee.
Did we put out an RFP version of this are these the only 5 that responded, or we just target these 5?
these are the 5 I sent them to, so all 5 of them were interested in it.
So, again, help me understand, Verizon and Tri-County, I'm not familiar
Horizon.
with as financial institutions. Not to say they're not, obviously you
Sure.
feel comfortable with them, but I just have to be honest, I've not heard of these folks. I
Yep.
don't know if they have a presence in Lebanon, or if we do business with them, or if that's even a concern. You know, the others that you mentioned do have a presence in the community. And that does not justify a $21,000 fee.
Sure.
But I just don't, and Mr. President, if I'm out of line, tell me, I just don't know who.
No,
provides
so essentially, I'm assuming you went, number 1, off of previous history, right? So typically in the government space, there are not that many banks that are overly competitive, if I'm being honest. I would have loved to see it go to Huntington, but that's just me being.
Because they're local. We know that's the reason. They're local. We wanna
Correct,
see
because they're local. But the reality is, when it comes to municipal lending, there are a few banks, these 5 being some of those that are very, very strong in their terms. And that's likely why we went to those 5 specifically.
Yeah,
Is-
I think you hit it on the head, and just exactly, I think it's a great question, and exactly to your reasoning is why we had, like, for instance, State Bank of Lisbon respond, because I know they have a great relationship with the city, and I would never fault you for choosing a bank because they were local versus someone that wasn't, for sure. The 2 that you're talking about, Horizon, both of them are Indiana-based banks. Horizon's based in northern Indiana, not Merrillville, but I'll think of it in just a second. Tri-County's based in Crawfordsville. Tri-County's a fairly small bank. Horizon's actually a pretty large bank, a very large bank, actually, for Indiana standards. And Horizon, as an example, they've done shell buildings with us in the past. So I just that was one reason, because I know they like these kind of projects. That was one reason I asked them.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. Other questions from the commission?
Well, I'm kind of like,
Comments?
trying to keep things at home as much as possible, but I hate that $20,000 fee compared to the other fees.
Well, I guess my justification on that is we're keeping our dollars at home.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, we got to spend. Yeah, once the clarification on the difference between the 21K and say that even the 10.5, you know, pretty heavy difference. I agree, Dick. I like to do business here, with people here, but
Yeah.
we have to be responsible when we deal with these things.
So hearing that conversation and kind of hearing what our goals are from a project standpoint, would the commission be interested in a vote to continue with potentially 2, possibly 3, to continue with full underwriting? That way these guys are able to continue to move forward. Obviously, we are going to get Baker Tilly involved. Baker Tilly is our financial advisor. But I think that would move us down the road a little bit.
I got Liston, State Bank of Liston and Farmers. What was the other first one?
Citizens.
And just to support your thinking, if you remember, State Bank of Lisbon was the one that couldn't give us an exact rate yet because that's the one bank that does need to go through full credit approval before they can even give that to us, so it's kind of a range. So if you wanted, that would make sense to me why we would want them to go through a full credit, just so that we know, we know. So I think that's perfectly fine.
My personal feelings on the matter, being in banking, is I believe that, we do quite a lot of business with State Bank of Lisbon from a city's perspective, and for them to be that far off base with an upfront fee versus these other two, I think we would help ourselves in future negotiations at not keeping them in the top 3, so they understand that we do value them being local, we value them being part of our community, but we still have to do what's best for our constituents and for our business park. That's my personal feeling on the matter. So, with that being said, I'm perfectly open to the will of the commission. I think, the 2 with the lower upfront, I think should in fact be part of our full credit package. If the commission feels so inclined to include a 3rd, then so be it. But that would require a motion.
If all 3 come back as presented now, probably tell you which way I'm gonna.
Right.
I don't know the amount about.
Right.
You and me now?
Right. Right. And again, as a banker, I wouldn't want to put, even, the reality is, when you look at a full credit underwriting, they have a lot of our info, but they're still going to put 5 to 10 hours easily into a process like this. They're going to go to underwriting. Underwriting is going to ask a few additional questions. It's going to involve Tanya and the mayor's office and kind of go that route. So at a minimum, I think you're looking at a 5 to 10 hour investment. Maximum could hit 20 to 35 hours probably on a deal like this on the front side. So. A lot of quiet commission members. So with that being said,
I'd be comfortable getting the
I would-
approval with the.
I would-
I would.
okay, so Dr. Milliman, did I hear that your
Got a
motion
motion?
was to?
Yeah, I don't know how to phrase the motion.
To move forward with Horizon and Tri-County for
Correct.
full underwriting?
Correct.
We've got a motion?
Second the motion?
Thank you.
We've got a motion and a second. Are we comfortable with just a standard vote, or we want a roll call? One standard vote? Got it. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Aye. What'd you do? You in favor?
Opposed.
He's no.
The ayes have it.
Have it.
Perfect. So I believe we're going to continue with Horizons and Tri-County
Okay.
for full underwriting for the commission to make a final decision likely in August, correct?
Yep. And-
Perfect.
and So we'll get with Baker Tilly right away just to make sure they're included in this from the very beginning.
My only decision.
And then And then we'll be ready to report back to you on both of those this time next month.
Perfect.
Great.
Thank you guys very much. I appreciate it. Renderings look great. Thank you for your time this evening.
Mind leaving those so I can look at them, or when you get a chance?
Ooh, you got roped into staying.
No, this will be quick, I promise.
Well, luckily enough, I believe that was the only agenda item under new business. So with that, I would move forward to our favorite, which is to pay the claims. We all received a copy of the claims, so I would entertain.
pay claims?
We've got a motion. I will second said motion. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. And final on the list here, Mr. Robertson is ready to go. Motion in a second. All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Thank you very much. We will be at our next meeting in August.
Just
Don't
John?
leave, everybody.
Oh, okay.
Sign